talking about you, the word loyalty always comes up, and you can see that you just like live that out in your life and everything that you do.
Loyalty in sports. Did these three players waste their time staying? Summer NBA free agency season is in full swing. It's the talk of sports offseason and a time in basketball teams use to bolster their rosters for the upcoming fall, make trades that best suit their intentions, and get their fan base excited about the product they're about to put on the floor. For players, it's also a chance to reevaluate the season or seasons you've finished and also decide which move is best for you in your career. Yes, long-term contracts are available, so some won't have to worry much about this time of the year. But after seeing what has been transpiring in the last few seasons in the NBA, contracts can and are being broken way early in a player's favor. Kevin Durant wants out of Brooklyn. He's 33 years old, will be 34 in September, just signed a 4-year extension not even a year ago with the team for 4 years, $198 million that kicks in this upcoming season. How do we view this? Some say, well, if you committed to the team by signing the deal, you should be obligated to fulfill your duties outlined in said deal. You certainly don't ask out right before it actually is set to kick in. At least you don't have the leverage to make sure the team adheres to your trade requests. But in today's NBA, we see that no matter the lack of leverage you seem to have contractually, there are many loopholes that players are using to get out of situations when they feel like it. Or the team faced the risk of a disgruntled player for the remainder of his deal, which also shows other star players they may not want to come there and be treated like hostages, physically, because without rationale, they forget there is a contract involved. On the other side, some think if you're not happy as a player, you should be able to leave as you please. After all, a team can trade you anytime, so why shouldn't you essentially trade them if the guidelines talked about before you signed aren't being followed, whether on paper or verbal commitments? And to this, I also see an argument. Using Kevin Durant's case, Spidey Sense tells me Kevin Durant spoke to the team before he got to Brooklyn and specifically told them he needs Kyrie for the duration of his time there. I also think he spoke to them after the 21-22 season and again reminded them that even though they were a terrible disaster for 3 years, that he still wants his friend and that his friend also deserves a long-term deal. When they didn't give his friend a long-term offer, he and friend got together and said, "Hey friend, how about you opt in and collect your $36 million this season? I asked for a trade, they'll trade me to whoever, and next year, when you're a free agent, you come join me at my new digs." I think that's what happened. Is Kevin Durant wrong for not being loyal to the Brooklyn Nets after a deal was made? Or should he look at the following three players who may have wasted their prime staying on a team too long as good reason he shouldn't waste more years in his current championship contending situation if he's not happy? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. You can also send a super thanks by clicking the button below. Enjoy the video. The three players I'd like to discuss are Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony, and Damian Lillard. These players were all great players at some point, and just the mention of their names brings back memories tied to a certain team. You don't say Allen Iverson without mentioning his time as a Sixer, Carmelo Anthony without the moments of greatness we witnessed as a Knick. And who could ever mention the Portland Trail Blazers and not think about the 10 years of clutch, competitiveness at an all-time high, and swagger Damian Lillard gave to Portland? Damian is 31 years old for the next 10 days, depending on when you see this. He'll be 32 before the 22-23 season. Studies have shown that most basketball players peak from 27 years old to about 33 years old, and from there, things usually have to either be adjusted and a prime can be extended, or by then, said player can't figure it out physically and starts his decline. That would make Dame peaking in the window to the other side of his career, having stayed on a team he has no chance of winning a title with. He stayed because of loyalty. Why did Allen Iverson and Carmelo Anthony? Allen Iverson. My favorite player of all time, my era's Michael Jordan. Iverson came into the NBA as the first overall pick in the '96 NBA draft with so much charisma right out the gate. From they called his name, and instead of taking the stage, he walked to the back exit where his childhood friends couldn't get in and shared that moment with them before even officially accepting it. A leader brings his guys. He went on to win Rookie of the Year, All-Star by his 4th season, leading to 7 straight in Philly, and an NBA MVP award in 2001 after he led the league in points and steals. He made all of his All-NBA teams with the Philadelphia 76ers. He stayed there for 4.5 years into his prime, and the furthest he got was 1 win in the NBA Finals in 2001. In the span of his prime years from 27 to 33, his next best player was Keith Van Horn in 02-03, who averaged 16 points at best in AI's prime. Glenn Robinson 03-04 producing the same as Keith. Allen was then 28. 04-05 they acquired a 31-year-old Chris Webber who had one more good year in him by then. 05-06 again Webber in his last prime year, and outside he and Iverson, role players for the most part. The Sixers thought putting complementary pieces around AI instead of adding another superstar in his prime to pair with caused Allen to have never won a championship in his career. Iverson, though, signed a 6-year extension in '99 at 24 years old and another for 4 years in 2005, so he knew what he was committing to. Especially in those times where players didn't just request trades from their kingdom. Iverson was a basketball god in Philly. The city loved him and he loved his fans. I almost understand why he stayed, but yes, Iverson wasted his prime because the Sixers never quite fulfilled their side of building the best team around him. His fault and the team. He went on to the Denver Nuggets to pair with Carmelo Anthony at the tail end of his prime, and from there, his championship window was closed. Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony was a hyped high school prospect, usually compared to LeBron James at that point. Won a national title in college as a freshman that went 3rd overall in the 2003 NBA draft to the Denver Nuggets and immediately became a 20 points a game scorer. He continued to prove he was a flat-out bucket against the best in the world and would do that for just about 8 seasons in Denver. By his 27-year-old prime, Melo was beginning his first full season with his new team, the New York Knicks. He left Denver after asking the team to trade him. He says after going to the conference finals in 2009, he expected the team to build on that success. Instead, they traded away a key piece like Dante Jones, informed him they weren't going to re-sign Chauncey Billups when his deal was up, were on the verge of trading J.R. Smith, Kenyon Martin's contract was up, and the NBA was about to have a lockout. He expressed to the team that sounds like a rebuild that he just didn't want to be involved in. They get eliminated in the first round in 09-10, and by the following year's midseason, he and Billups were traded to the Knicks. Melo signs a 5-year, $120+ million extension with the New York Knicks and stayed there even after his team made the playoffs just twice, conference semifinals one time in 12-13, then missed the playoffs for 4 straight years of Melo's remaining prime. He was 32 years old, final year an All-Star, and final year being one of the top players in the league. He signed with OKC, then Houston, Portland, and the Lakers, and has been declining since his days in New York. One of the biggest examples of prime wasted in NBA history. A lot because the Knicks are the Knicks, and although had some solid pieces around Melo early like Stoudemire, he wound up injury prone and unable to help Melo much, and other than that, no one else as Melo was a one-man show. Something I think he low-key enjoyed because he could shoot at will and never developed the sense of team-building traits, therefore allowed the Knicks to put non-players around him as long as he could shoot every shot. Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard is in an interesting place in his career right now, where his prime years are more than likely past him or coming to a close, and his latest injury-riddled season 21-22, where he only played 29 games, may have shown that. His games played have for the most part declined since 28-29 years old. He was drafted in 2012 6th overall by the Blazers and has spent his entire career with the same team. He was once quick to boast and remind Paul George in a Twitter feud between the two of his loyalty to his team, and didn't seem to get why players around him were shuffling around to get on teams where they could win. He's cut from a cloth where a superstar had his team and jumping ship was not an option. The Mamba way, the Allen Iverson way to a certain point. But now Dame has seen that that may have been a bad idea. He'll be 32 during the 2022-23 season, still on the Blazers as we speak, who have just traded away longtime backcourt mate CJ McCollum, who was supposed to help him be a better version of the Splash Brothers. They also let Carmelo walk to the Lakers and are in complete rebuild mode, just drafting 19-year-old high school phenom Shaedon Sharpe with the 7th overall pick. Anthony Simons just signed a 4-year, $100 million contract with the Blazers, so he and Sharpe at some point look to be the backcourt future for the team. Leaving Dame where? I believe in a place he now wants out and doesn't see Paul George's actions to be that funny any longer. Only he's basically stuck because no one wants to come to Portland except an older Carmelo. He has years left on his $176 million extension from 2020, so getting him to a contender seems more difficult than thought to be. Another wasted prime in large part because of loyalty to his team and the Blazers being just good enough for him to keep re-signing and also not good enough to be the best team in the league. All in all, did these players waste their prime loyal to one team? Yes. Allen was the heart of Philly, but he should have pushed harder for another viable all-star to play with. Only in those times that wasn't the norm until LeBron. Carmelo, I think, was content being the number one scoring option, getting his money, and not being open to when Jeremy Lin was becoming a viable star next to him. Melo didn't want other stars and should have left for the Bulls in 2014. Dame is the only current player still in his prime that will most likely leave ringless if he can't figure a way on a team that could contend. Of course, that'll make his past comments look real funny in the light, but hey, at least he wouldn't have wasted away in Portland. Should players like Kevin Durant be loyal to sports teams, or should they move when they see fit and not waste the last bit of their prime unhappy? Let me know in the comments below. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.
Anything other than loyalty ain't worth it, you know?